want to talk about some climate change related stuff, baby.
Hooray.
I know. And it's actually good news. We were talking about this earlier on in the day, and I'm kind of bullish on this.
Yeah, you are bullish.
I'm happy about it.
That's exciting.
It's a nice feeling. A commercial plant is pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. It is a private company called Heirloom Carbon Technologies based out of California, and it is calling itself the first commercial plant in the U.S. to use direct air capture. Now, what is direct air capture? Well, it involves sucking greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere and storing it either underground, inside of concrete, keeping it away from making the global temperatures rise. So the way that Heirloom is doing their process here is they're pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and they're trapping it in concrete, which is such a cool idea that I love so much, because then this could be used as building technology. This could be used for roads. This could be used for a bunch of other stuff.
True.
The way that the whole process works, I'll run down it quick because I think the technology is actually very, very cool. So it utilizes limestone. This is one of the most abundant rocks on the planet, and it forms when calcium oxide binds with carbon dioxide. Now that's important. In nature, that process takes years, but Heirloom is able to speed it up very, very fast. They heat limestone to 1,650 degrees Fahrenheit in a massive kiln, which is powered already by renewable energy. The carbon dioxide then comes out of the limestone and is pumped inside of a storage tank. So you're separating that calcium oxide and that carbon dioxide. You're making the carbon dioxide a gas, pulling it out. All you have left is the calcium dioxide. That leftover calcium dioxide, it's thin. It looks like flour, and it is doused with water and spread onto large trays, which are carried already by robots onto large tower racks and exposed to open air. Over 3 days, the white powder absorbs all the carbon dioxide in the air and turns into limestone once again, where it goes back in the kiln, the carbon dioxide goes back into the storage container, and then the cycle repeats over and over and over and over again. Heirloom works with another company called Carbon Cure, which mixes this carbon dioxide into concrete, which is amazing because now future projects can be used. Future construction projects can use this concrete instead of making new concrete, leveling our carbon footprint. And in the future, Heirloom plans on pumping the carbon dioxide into massive underground storage wells and burying it instead of just moving it into a new concrete product, which is just like, are we in the future or what, dude?
Yeah, that's super cool. It's exciting to me too that they're going to create concrete, which means they can sell concrete, which means this can be economically viable in the market on its own.
Yes,
right?
just on its own.
Where governments are not the only buyer.
Yes.
That's huge to me.
There are other buyers of this as well that go outside of the commodity production aspect. Microsoft has signed on to a massive deal. What does Microsoft have to do with carbon capture? Well, the company makes its money, the Heirloom makes its money by selling carbon removal credits to companies who purchase them to offset their own emissions.
Yeah.
So Microsoft has signed a deal to remove 315,000 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere with this company, Heirloom. Microsoft said carbon removal can be a lot more expensive than offsets, but what you're paying for in terms of climate impact is radically different.
Totally.
So we see Microsoft, this private company, making really good inroads.
Yeah. Well, what I think about when I hear this is this needs to be paired with a cap and trade legislation, right? A cap and trade policy, which means that the government sets a cap on the amount of CO2 emissions that can be had each year kind of across the board, and it gives out credits or tokens or something to trade. You can trade the representative item that says how many emissions that you can produce. So I feel like what you need is a cap and trade policy, which is going to force the scaling up of this system in the economy naturally.
Naturally. Because now what happens is these guys could earn cap tokens and then trade them.
Exactly.
So that's exactly what has to happen.
Yes. And then you can slowly taper down the amount of carbon you are allowed to produce in the whole economy.
Yes. So currently the company only has the capacity to suck out 1,000 tons a year, which sucks.
Yeah.
That's only equal to about 200 cars. which is
Nothing.
really nothing. No. But the Biden administration has awarded $1.2 billion to help several companies, including Heirloom, build larger plants that are going to repeat this process in massive scales in Texas and Louisiana. Specifically, the companies Airbus planes and Chase, big bank, are in the market of purchasing these credits to reach their climate goals. So Heirloom has massive potential buyers if they're able to upscale.
Yeah, but I mean, you have here, there's backlash to the technology because people think that it will be used just as a justification for why we can keep burning fossil fuels. And I completely understand that. And that's why I think instituting cap and trade it's necessary for this to work.
Sure.
Right? Without it, and we've talked about this before, producing more clean energy is kind of just a fun, exciting stat to look at that could possibly mean absolutely nothing as far as what we're doing to transition to a green economy.
Yeah.
Because what matters is the raw amount of of greenhouse gases in the air.
Yeah.
That is what is warming the earth. So if we're producing a ton of green energy and we're also burning a ton of oil and a ton of natural gas to create energy, we're still fucked.
Right.
It doesn't help us at all.
Exactly.
So we need it to not just be like, oh, we can capture a lot of carbon so that we can burn a lot more carbon. That doesn't do anything for us.
Right. And a lot of Heirloom's policy or their goals is to specifically say they want to undo the damage of the Industrial Revolution. They want to their dream is to suck the carbon out of the atmosphere that's been there since 1890.
Yeah.
Right. That's like their go-to phrase there, and I really like that about them.
Yeah, that's exciting because the other major company, and we talked about this before, that is getting funding for this direct air capture is called Occidental Petroleum.
I read about these guys, man. What a bunch of bastards.
It's terrible. And I mean, what they're doing is exactly what I just described, right?
Yeah.
They're ready to produce more oil, and they've bought up smaller carbon capture companies so that they can try to scale them up to allow Occidental Petroleum to produce and sell more petroleum.
Yep.
It's disgusting.
The executives of that company have actually been on the record and said in their earning calls that this tech will save our industry. So that's their goal here. We can't let them do that.
No.
One downside about this carbon capture technology, right? It's very expensive right now. It's $600 every ton to remove. That's a lot of money. It's actually the most expensive way to curb emissions. But people say, and I agree, that when you upscale this and you get this going, it becomes cheaper and cheaper per ton. And I definitely think over the next 3 years, this could be something we could see in the future that becomes par and parcel of our industrial economy.
I hope so. And it is exciting that limestone is like the basic material, which is so common. The other nice thing, the optimistic thing I'll say about prices, some of Heirloom's first sales for capture and storage in 2021 were $2,000 a ton. So we're talking about 2 years ago, the price down from $2,000 to $600.
Wow.
So $600 might sound like a lot, but we've talked before when we did our climate change deep dives about basically the learning curve as far as how much cheaper a technology gets the more it's used. It seems like this learning curve might be extremely steep, kind of the level that we need it to be.
I'm going to be honest. When I read that tech and I read the science behind this and I could totally understand it and I know nothing about science, I was like, that's all it is?
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. That's all it is? That's the whole process?
Yeah.
That seems so easy. It seems so simple.
It does seem easy. It does seem good. But I still think it needs more money to
obviously,
scale, right? It's
course.
only got a few billion from the government.
If they get money up front from Chase, Airbus, Microsoft, that can definitely help them.